Hey, how's it going, YouTube? And I'm actually talking to someone else, Reckless Ragdoll. Hello. I'll try not to become too socially anxious, even though I am just talking to a video camera still. It's really weird that I can sort of get up and make a video that 600 people watch without feeling too nervous, but if I feel like I'm talking to one person, and like a bit of the old social anxiety creeps in. But it's fine, you're really nice. It's really nice to see you again. And everyone, please go and subscribe to Reckless Ragdoll and check out her fringe. I've curled my hair in honour of your fringe because it's so funky. You start your video, we have a lot to talk about, and I'm quite stoned, and I have a history of making really boring video responses, so I'm going to try and make this interesting and fast. I would edit it, actually, if I had the luxury of a mouse and a keyboard. I would be kind to my audience and you and edit everything, but I have this annoying touchscreen tablet, and getting the right point to edit at is really like almost impossible, until I get a keyboard at least. So you start your video by talking about, you know, that contrary to sort of a popular viewpoint, you view the fact that you're going to die one day and your immortality as sort of empowering to you and motivating to you. And I think, yes, finally, because that's really how I have viewed, on the positive side, yeah, very much like, as I'm talking about in that video, that, you know, I start from a point of realising everything's going to be okay, actually, because I'm going to die one day. That's the end. I know what the end of the story is. I'm going to die one day. And so that sort of frees me to write the story in between, because the end is certain, actually. And I don't need to be afraid of what I know. And there is, I think, a darker side in the past, particularly when I've sort of been actively really depressed. I found a sense of my own mortality very comforting in dark times, because I always know, like, however bad it gets, there's always an out. There's always a way to bring an end to it. And even if I don't actively bring an end about, there always will be an end. And there's, in a more positive light, there is a comfort to be had in knowing there will be an end. You know, you talk about you don't want to live a lie. You know, I don't want to live a lie either. That's sort of why I think that's all I can honestly say. This is the direction I need to go in to live the life that I want to lead, is because all I can honestly say is I want to experience life. And I want to do it sensitively with my eyes open. And figuratively, you know, with my heart open. And you say that callings don't make themselves, they have to be sort of grown from seeds of inspiration. Yeah, I quoted one of my favourite quotes from George Bernard Shaw in the video following that, which is, life isn't about finding yourself, life's about creating yourself. And I really think that's what I take from that, you know, maybe 5 times a day, even during my habitual, routine, boring commute, I think, oh, I'd love to be able to do that, I'd love to be able to, this would be, you know, these are sort of seeds of inspiration. And because I don't have any, I have a stoner memory and I don't have any particular filing system, I don't walk around with a notepad, or until recently I didn't, and write down these things as they occur to me. I never remember them to pursue them. So yeah, that's what I'm absolutely, you're right, and that's a piece of wisdom that, you know, callings don't make themselves. You don't so much either find them, it's more about exploring things and pursuing little moments of interest until they become huge snowballs of inspiration. And you say that there are a number of reasons that people don't sort of take off around the world, like sort of, you know, well, one day I'm going to do this, and you say, when are you going to do it? Yeah, this is how I feel about this, you know, or that they feel that they've built this life for themselves and they can't risk it all, or they feel that it's impossible to change so much of their life, or that they feel sort of that they have a responsibility to be a serious person. And this is where it gets really sad. And then you mention, of course, David Cameron talking about sort of the right thing, and when he says the right thing, what you perceive him to mean is to sort of get married and work a 9 to 5 job and sort of be a good citizen. And my response to all of that is, yeah, this is sort of capitalism, the ideology of capitalism, the ideology which has to accompany a system like this needs to be like that you yourself have to be not spiritually involved, at least consciously, intellectually involved in the upkeep of the system. They can't watch over you, making you work 9 to 5 for the rest of your life. You need to dedicate yourself to doing that, and you know, it takes a very natural desire of human beings to procreate, and it presents them with a really sort of a defined image of the sort of man-woman 2.4 kids patriarchal structure, which historically has always proved so sort of beneficial to capitalism, and to this day sort of produces good workers and produces sort of indoctrinated workers. And wow, I'm going off on a Marxist, well, I don't even know if it's Marxist, I'm going off on a sort of left-wing reactionary rant right now, so I will but this rat race, this sort of dedication that the person, the average individual in the West is sort of encouraged to have towards the 9-to-5 job is this sort of notion of progress, and that progress is the desirable thing, and that moving in this direction, this particular direction of technological and financial sort of progress is the direction that will be good for people. And I personally just have a very different notion of what progress for me as an individual looks like. And I sort of do try to talk in this society to people about my definition of progress, but often I'm sort of met with a response of like, well, if you don't like it, don't live here. And so this is sort of becoming a logical response. It's sort of like, okay, I won't. Like, in a sense, it's giving up on the big, well, I'm going to get to this in a minute, actually. If I start talking like this, I'm never going to get through it. You talk about, how scary it would be to one day realise that, you've left, leaving it all to some other day, and then getting to be an age where you realise you've left it all too late, and, oh, back then was the time when I was supposed to do that, and when I was able to do that, and yeah, this is my greatest fear. I think that most people don't so much try to live well as die well. If what you spend your whole life working towards is so that when you retire you have a reasonable amount of money to live on, and you own your own house, and you've got children and grandchildren, but you live your whole life making sure that the age of the life that you lead from 65 to 90 or 100 or however old you live is going to be good, like the golden years, you're building everything for the golden years. I kind of see that more as like how to die well rather than how to live well, because now is the time when I have the fit body and the reasonably fit mind and the young naivety and enthusiasm to sort of make these things happen. But there is a darker side to all of this as well, because there are people that can't get out now. There are people for whom taking off like this around the world and finding work in other countries and just living a life of sort of newness and inspiration, novelty and inspiration, is actually impossible. And we're living in the age of, these quick loans with 1700% APR. The sort of debt traps that are all over the capitalist system are just so numerous that there are now many of us that just aren't in a position to be able to do this, that would be seen as sort of like illegally taking off around the world to escape their debts if they tried to do this. So I'm also wary of sort of getting on with it while I'm young, because it's a sort of difficult society to negotiate, and I'm not sure if I spent 40 years in the capitalist system if I'd have any inspiration, spirit, money, ability to do it anymore. And you think about sort of single parents and people with young children that just can't sort of take off. There are people for whom it is impossible, and it's not impossible for me, and so it almost feels like I feel like in response to my other video there was like a feeling that I wasn't, that maybe from older and less inspired people than me, that I'm sort of ungrateful for what I have, that I'll take off into the big bad world and I'll come back with my tail between my legs realising that I should have been more grateful for what I had. But the whole desire to sort of see the world and get out there doesn't at all stem from a lack of gratitude. And in fact, I see it as sort of signalling my gratitude that I would use my privilege as a Westerner, and my privilege as a woman with no children, and my privilege as someone from a middle class educated background to be able to do that. Like, it almost seems like negligent to what I should be grateful for, to not use it and live it. To just sort of be like, well, now I'm going to work 9 to 5 for the rest of my life because other people think that I should feel guilty because I have the ability to do that. But as you say, that you get onto the part of my video where I talk about I need to build myself around myself. I need to make myself strong and independent and immovable. And you say, be touchable. Don't be untouchable. Be touchable. I'll definitely plan to travel the world and be slightly touchable in a responsible way. No, I am being lewd and I'm joking. You're talking about, you know, to be an artist and to be creative, you need to be vulnerable. And oh, absolutely, like I picked up on this even watching back my own video. I know I was going to pick up on it in a video, so I'm glad that you brought it up, where it sort of came across like I was saying I'm going to make myself like a rock that moves through the world. And it's really not sort of, you know, you observe yourself that travelling with mental health problems sort of has its own considerations, and so that is part of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about making myself strong, is you can be a vulnerable and open person as long as you have a part of your brain which is sort of acting as a responsible adult and making sure that you're not doing dangerous things. So you can allow this sort of like 17th century romantic part of yourself to run spiritually wild and artistically wild, but there does always need to be the sort of more paternal part of your brain which keeps an eye on you and makes sure that you don't just run like sort of naively and artistically into dangerous situations, you know. So that's part of what I'm talking about making sure that I basically don't go wild with the freedom of it all, you know, having a sort of sense of stability that way, you know. And as you say, because as you say, the creativity and you know, nurturing of the calling or the potential requires a sort of open mind, and it's also, I think, important to be stronger, because I don't cease to be me. Like, I wanted to pick up, because it didn't come across in the video, that I don't cease to be me. I don't cease to be a compassionate and caring person just because I go to other places. It's not my intention to live a hedonistic life, and I can understand why in that video it came off that way, because in my second video, my jubilance after reading my bucket list, I'm like, you know, is it possible to have fun all the time? I'm not sort of seriously saying, can I have fun all the time, so much as sort of this feeding the seed of an inkling to a depressed mind that actually it's okay to have fun sometimes, that everything isn't serious, I don't need to overanalyze everything. It's okay to seek out fun. It is worthy, like, because I feel guilty about not achieving my full potential as a I suppose maybe, I don't know, as a social activist or a social commentator, or not lending my weight to social movements if I'm having fun. But I think also as a human being, I don't want to look back and think, I wouldn't think back and think I hadn't dedicated my life to a worthwhile cause if I had spent my whole life trying to help other people. But I also would like to look back at a life where I laughed and it was a simple thing and I enjoyed fun moments with other people. And, you know, I don't want to lose sight of being able to smile sometimes. Like, it's easy for a depressed mind to do that. So when I say I'm steeling myself, I don't mean I'm sort of, and I understand why you thought that, I'm steeling myself against sort of the demons of depression, the hard times that you bring up in a moment on the road, and the naysayers, actually. Yeah, I was gonna, oh god, this is a 13-minute long video, I'm so sorry. Fuck it, I'm just gonna talk, and then, you know, anyone's welcome to sort of, I was going to read you a bit, I was going to make a video basically about naysayers, because I didn't think that I could respond to some of the comments I got in my first video, because I hadn't worked it out on my tablet. I can now respond. But judging by the waffling that I'm doing in this video, it'd be much quicker just to sort of read what I wrote rather than try and make a video on the topic. Just like, this is on the 13th of November. It's only when you begin to share your dreams with others that the naysayers come into sharp focus. The naysayers are the people who complain about the heat in the summer, the cold in the winter, when the bus is delayed and when 3 arrive at once. Normally these people are at best those with whom you share your more ungrateful moments in life, and at worst they make your working day drag that little bit longer. But when you're gestating a dream, a precious and fragile inkling, their needling comments crescendo into a deafening roar. Most often the naysayer will smile knowingly, sit back in their chair a little and say something like, "It'll be different when you're older, when you have a few more dreams dashed, when you realise that life isn't how they told you it would be as a child." As though I'm a 10-year-old telling the world that I'm going to marry Leonardo DiCaprio when I'm older, and not a grown woman planning very seriously a backpacking trip through Asia. It really is truly incredible how many experts on life there are out there, but more astounding still is how many people do not seem to have felt any need to use this expertise in relation to their own life. I have not clarified my dreams within a vacuum where everything in life goes to plan and no one ever dies young, nor have I selected any dream which cannot theoretically be achieved and has not been achieved by someone else already. My dreams do not require great riches to achieve, nor do they require a great act of physical excess. The naysayers are people ultimately who are afraid to watch others around them try for the stars, lest they themselves are forced to recognise that it is not life but their so-called expertise, or their attitude towards it which holds them back. When you truly grasp the endless possibilities of life, you can never blame anyone but yourself if you do not pursue any of them. What I'm trying to say is that I need to steel myself against the sort of critical attitudes of others to which I've always been very susceptible, because ultimately I have no one to answer to but myself at the end of the day. And if I don't live, or at least try to live the life that I want to live, then I have no one to look in the mirror but myself. I'm steeling myself against the part of myself which seems to care so much about the opinions of others, when the opinions of others are so sort of seemingly unhelpful. I think that a lot of us young people need to try and almost, whilst we need to, and I have said in videos before, we need to respect the lessons that we can learn from older people. Often it's also important to steel ourselves against the lessons that older people would have us learn, cycles of abuse and alcoholism and negative thought patterns and lack of ambition, that we might also learn from older people. And you point out that, travelling often involves sort of boredom and hardship and suffering. And you mentioned Alain de Botton, The Art of Travel. I haven't read it. I'm going to definitely read it now that it sounds great. And the point that he makes is that when we're picturing ourselves off travelling the world on our island in Barbados, we don't anticipate ourselves being there, and we often find the reality of actually being there is that ourselves and the needling little moments are still there. And you yourself bring up moment of discomfort in Nicaragua with an eye infection after the dust blew in your eyes, and boredom on a Morocco train when you couldn't sleep at night, and that you yourself sort of have a problem with boredom, that you've struggled with boredom in the past. And I think this is really where the elements that I'm trying to bring in of yoga and meditation and sort of a more Eastern philosophy become more important, because they're sort of set to deal, almost directly with desire and unfulfilled desire and the anguish that comes of unfulfilled desire, and the ability to sort of step outside of yourself and look at and silence the mind which always wants things to be truly in the moment and to have a more objective view of the moment. That's part of what I mean by hardening myself, ironically, is to sort of have a psychological or spiritual journey into my own mind in order to strengthen myself, but ultimately to achieve a sort of resistance to the changing tides of things. That's what I mean by immovable, but I certainly by all means do not mean, by any means do I mean, I do not by any means, God, bloody weed. Oh, right, addiction, major first thing that has to go is being addicted to cigarettes and weed. I can't travel and take this weight of this addiction with me. It's about sort of being resilient to these moments, having a wider view and building a stronger nature. And I loved what you talked about next, that you say that, you talk about the research showing links between travelling and creativity and intelligence. So that's definitely, I feel like this is what inspires, this is what motivates me to do this, this is what it's for. That's kind of what I say when all I can see myself doing is travelling the world, is all I can see myself doing is developing new neural pathways, meeting new people, seeing new places. But I mean to take myself with me, and who I am is a compassionate, socially aware person, and I by no means intend to become less compassionate or socially aware. I intend to be sensitive to the suffering that I'm going to run into, and I intend to make myself useful wherever I can. Although the things on my bucket list are all things that are like fun, I want to walk on the Great Wall of China and I want to trek through the Amazon rainforest. In a very real sense, I want to travel through the world to understand sort of social problems, and lend actual muscle power and lend a hand where I can, and wherever the sort of opportunity, however small, presents itself. I'm particularly reminded, I've been particularly inspired recently. I was reading my friend's blog, who's Stealth Badger, who a lot of people know on YouTube, and whose blog I'll link below, but he brought it up for me, where part of the realisation that it's okay for me to take off around the world is because I've realised that I'm not making any difference sitting and making sweeping observations, social commentaries on YouTube. I might change a few minds from time to time, and sometimes people do in these glorious moments say, I thought about this, I never thought about this before. And and you made me think about that, and it is a glorious moment. But ultimately, I'm not actually affecting great change in the world by doing what I'm doing. And so I've sort of felt I need to stay in the Western world where I can be a powerful influence on and help the lives of much less fortunate people all around the world from this position of power. But I realised that I'm not actually doing that, because Stealth Badger's blog is about some volunteer work that he's been doing in the last few weeks, escorting people into family planning clinics through crowds of protesters. And I was really, really, really touched by what he's doing, and it absolutely struck a chord with me, because it's what I've been trying to say to other people, and what I've been trying to realise myself, is that this is what helping another person is. It's actually helping the people that live in your local community. It's actually actively doing it. It's not intellectualizing it and thinking about it and theorizing around it and debating about it on YouTube. It's actually making a difference in the world. So it's completely compatible, actually, that the wider more freely I range, and the wider I move intellectually and physically, the more opportunities, surely, for callings will present themselves, where I actually can find myself one day working for a major charity or NGO, or doing something which makes a difference in the world. And I can actually have a sort of job which both sustains me financially and makes a real difference for people, and use my talents that way. And this is sort of part of finding the going out into the world, is sort of to find a calling. The calling is not to go out into the world, but it's important to keep moving through the world and to never lose. You can come back from time. And that was another thing that came off from it. It's like, I said that I'm quite happy to move out into the world and never come back. And I can't remember what it is. It's either a Chinese proverb or how useless is that? It's either a Chinese proverb or a Native American proverb, but I doubt it. It's not Native American. Whatever. You can't find new shores. You can't find new shores until you're willing to leave leave one behind you. Until you stop clinging to the one behind you. And I don't relate to this country, and the only thing to hold me here is my family, and I'm happy to sort of move out into the world and never come back. But I'm not saying that I will always have to have a nomadic existence. There's no reason that I can't one day find a home, build a home. And what I got distracted by Teddy Longlegs from saying was this, just because I won't have children of my own, because I'm going to spend this part of my life really, really, really expanding my mind with every possible experience that I can have. But that doesn't mean that one day I can't be a mother there are many children that need, adoptive parents, and there's no reason I can't one day be a parent just because I can biologically no longer be a parent. I'd foster several children happily. Later on in life, possibly. If I'm less mental by then, I can count on my mental stability more by then, I'll do it. But I love you talking about your travel, and that you can relate to the sort of sense of wanting to be enlightened every day to sort of and it is exhausting and it is uncomfortable, but I'd rather be exhausted and uncomfortable and from time to time bored than know that I'm selling my life for a very cheap wage day after day, without a purpose. It's a desire to really stir everything up, and I think also that there's an element of adventure that does. I'm so sorry, I'm at 23 minutes. There's an element of adventure as well, which is like Frosty Waldridge talks about how adventures aren't always big, crossing great landscapes and lots of terrain, but the introverted person's adventure can happen in the mind, and there can be such a thing as intellectual adventuring and spiritual adventuring as well. And that makes a lot of sense that, it doesn't need to be a great act of extroversion to have an adventure. Having an adventure is following your bliss and stepping out into the unknown, but that can be very much done from whatever your sort of physical capability, and that can be very relative to a person's physical or mental capability. It's sort of interesting to think about adventures of the introverted. You say, anyway, I'm sort of done. Would I like a video about TEFL? If you're still watching, I'm so sorry I've made you watch 25 minutes of a video. Yes, I would love a video about TEFL, that'd be great, or an email about TEFL if you don't think other people would be interested. Yeah, it would be brilliant, actually, because I'm really serious about it, and if you've got experience in it, that'd be fantastic. Oh my god, it'd be so cool. Yeah, in 2 months you're going to go and teach in Vietnam, that'd be brilliant. Please take a camera with you, make a few videos. I'd love to see a bit of Vietnam and like sort of walk around it from a ground eye view. It'd be really cool. And you say that I'm absolutely one of your favourite YouTubers. That's like mental. Anyone, I'm sure there must be at least a couple of hundred of my viewers that like have low self-esteem and that can relate to a feeling of being like coming across as so shy and like being so surprised when someone says something like that about you. But I'm very touched, thank you, and I'm trying. This is what I'm talking about. I need to build myself to a point where I can get a compliment. It's not like I expected the compliment, but it's also not like I'm really surprised by it either, you know, like, yeah, I thought I was okay. She thinks I'm really cool. So it sort of relates to the reality that I perceive, whereas at the moment it's sort of like, wow, I perceive myself to be a really terribly rambly, uninteresting YouTuber, but when other people say that they really enjoy watching my videos, it's just a crazy sort of shock. So thank you very much. And go and subscribe to Reckless Ragdoll. If you can watch 25 minutes of me waffle, you're going to love watching her sort of 16-minute, very succinct, very articulate videos. Go watch them. Yeah, see you YouTube. Hope you're all well. Thanks, Reckless Ragdoll. Bye.